In Drag Maine to Hell, the story revolves around Christine Brown, a young loan officer who is eager to secure a promotion at her bank. When an elderly woman, Mrs. Ganush, comes to her for a mortgage extension, Christine, desperate to prove herself, denies the request. In a moment of cold calculation, she dismisses the woman, only to face the wrath of a powerful curse. Mrs. Ganush, humiliated and enraged, places a curse on Christine, threatening to drag her to hell in 3 days if she cannot reverse the decision. As the deadline looms, Christine's life spirals into chaos, haunted by increasingly terrifying supernatural occurrences. Strange phenomena invade her everyday life. She is plagued by unsettling visions, unsettling noises, and an overwhelming sense of dread that permeates her existence. Her relationships begin to suffer, especially with her boyfriend, Clay, as she becomes more isolated in her fear and desperation. Christine's journey to break the curse takes her to a series of eerie and unsettling encounters, including a visit to a fortune teller who reveals the dire consequences of her actions. She delves into a world of dark magic and the supernatural, encountering the horrors that lie beneath her seemingly mundane life. The tension escalates as she grapples with her past decisions and the weight of her impending doom, leading to moments of both visceral horror and dark humor. In a desperate bid to save herself, Christine explores increasingly dangerous options, including a confrontation with Mrs. Ganush that turns deadly. As the final confrontation approaches, the line between reality and nightmare blurs, culminating in a gut-wrenching climax that leaves audiences questioning the nature of fate, guilt, and retribution. Ultimately, Drag Maine to Hell serves as a chilling reminder of how a single moment of cruelty can unleash a cascade of horrors, leading to a fate far worse than death itself, leaving Christine and the audience grappling with the haunting inevitability of consequences that cannot be escaped. A young and ambitious loan officer finds herself caught in a web of horror after a fateful decision at the bank. As she strives for a promotion, she encounters Mrs. Ganush, an elderly woman seeking an extension on her mortgage. Initially sympathetic, Christine's desire to impress her boss leads her to deny the request, casting aside her compassion. This cold dismissal unleashes a powerful curse from Mrs. Ganush, who vows to drag Christine to hell in 3 days if she cannot undo her actions. As the deadline approaches, Christine's life is engulfed in chaos. She experiences terrifying supernatural occurrences, shadows lurking in her periphery, unsettling noises that disrupt her nights, and nightmarish visions that invade her waking hours. Her once promising future is now overshadowed by an overwhelming sense of dread that permeates her existence. Relationships strain under the weight of her fear. Her boyfriend, Clay, grows concerned and confused as Christine becomes increasingly isolated, consumed by her desperate attempts to break the curse. In a quest for salvation, Christine consults a fortune teller, who unveils the dire ramifications of her choices and the true nature of the curse. Each step she takes plunges her deeper into a world of dark magic and supernatural terror, exposing the horrors that lurk beneath her seemingly ordinary life. The tension escalates as Christine confronts her guilt and the shadows of her past, leading to moments that blend visceral horror with dark humor, showcasing the thin line between desperation and despair. In her frantic search for answers, Christine confronts Mrs. Ganush directly, a decision that spirals into a deadly encounter. The line between reality and nightmare blurs as Christine finds herself in increasingly horrific situations, ultimately culminating in a gut-wrenching climax that forces her to grapple with the consequences of her actions. The final confrontation is both shocking and tragic, leaving audiences to ponder the themes of fate, guilt, and retribution. As Christine faces the ultimate price for her moment of cruelty, Drag Maine to Hell serves as a chilling reminder of how quickly life can unravel due to a single poor decision. The narrative highlights the haunting inevitability of consequences that cannot be escaped, encapsulating the idea that sometimes the darkest horrors emerge not from the supernatural, but from within ourselves. Christine's harrowing journey leaves a lasting impact, urging viewers to reflect on the nature of compassion, the fragility of humanity, and the lurking potential for evil in every choice we make. His story deepens when Christine starts experiencing horrifying supernatural phenomena. She finds herself haunted by grotesque apparitions and unsettling sounds, from the chilling whispers echoing through her home to the shadows that seem to follow her every move. Each night brings new horrors, making it increasingly difficult for her to distinguish between reality and the nightmare closing in around her. As the days tick down to her deadline, Christine becomes obsessed with finding a way to lift the curse. Desperation drives her to seek guidance from a fortune teller, who reveals the curse's dark origins and the weight of her choices. The fortune teller's cryptic warnings only add to Christine's panic, urging her to confront the very source of her torment, Mrs. Ganush. This confrontation escalates into a frantic struggle, where Christine's fear and guilt collide with the wrath of the old woman, revealing the true extent of the supernatural forces at play. The tension mounts as Christine's relationships crumble under the pressure of her fear. Clay, increasingly perplexed by Christine's erratic behavior, struggles to support her, but their bond frays as her isolation deepens. Friends and family become distant, unable to grasp the magnitude of the horror consuming her. The psychological toll of the curse manifests in haunting dreams and visions that reflect her guilt, showing her past mistakes and moral failures in disturbing detail. The climax unfolds in a horrifying confrontation where Christine must confront Mrs. Ganush one last time. This encounter is a grotesque ballet of terror and despair, as the curse's true nature is revealed in a visceral explosion of horror. The boundaries of morality and survival blur as Christine fights for her soul, ultimately facing the terrifying realization that her moment of cruelty has irrevocably altered her destiny. In the aftermath, as Christine grapples with the consequences of her actions, Drag Main to Hell serves as a haunting exploration of the fragility of human decency. The film culminates in a chilling conclusion that leaves viewers with an unsettling truth sometimes. The darkest horrors lie not in the supernatural, but in our own choices and the irrevocable paths they carve. Christine's harrowing journey becomes a powerful allegory of how a single lapse in compassion can unleash a cascade of nightmarish consequences, reminding us of the lurking potential for darkness in every decision we make. The once bright future she envisioned begins to dim as supernatural phenomena invade her daily existence. Shadows lurk in the corners of her vision, and eerie whispers echo through her home, heightening her paranoia. Each night feels longer and more oppressive, with sleep offering no refuge as terrifying nightmares plague her. She wakes in a cold sweat, haunted by images of the old woman's wrath and the unshakable feeling that something dark is stalking her. Desperation becomes Christine's constant companion as the deadline approaches. Seeking answers, she visits a fortune teller, who reveals the curse's horrific implications. The fortune teller's warnings are cryptic yet chilling, suggesting that Christine's only chance lies in confronting her past actions. With every word, Christine feels the weight of her choices pressing down on her, further fueling her determination to reverse the curse. She is thrust into a nightmarish race against time, where her very soul hangs in the balance. In a desperate act of bravery, Christine decides to confront Mrs. Ganush directly. This encounter is fraught with tension, as the old woman's fury manifests in terrifying ways. The atmosphere crackles with energy as supernatural forces clash, and Christine is forced to confront not just the curse but her own conscience. The struggle is visceral and chaotic, filled with moments of sheer terror that push Christine to her limits. The boundaries between right and wrong dissolve as she fights for her life, grappling with her past mistakes in real time. The climax reaches a fever pitch as the curse reveals its true nature. In a grotesque, surreal confrontation, Christine must face her own demons while battling Mrs. Ganush's relentless wrath. This moment is a horrifying ballet of despair and revelation, where every action has dire consequences. As Christine fights for her soul, she realizes that the very choices she made have led her to this devastating point. The horror is not just in the supernatural elements, but in the raw reflection of her own moral failings. Each day is marked by increasing dread, manifesting in horrifying visions and unexplainable phenomena. As shadows grow darker, the weight of her choices presses down harder. In her attempts to regain control, she becomes obsessed with research, scouring old texts and folklore, desperate for any hint on how to lift the curse. Late nights turn into frenzied searches, illuminated only by flickering candles, as she uncovers the true nature of the dark forces aligned against her. Every encounter with the supernatural becomes more intense, revealing the depth of her torment. Objects move on their own, the air thickens with a palpable sense of dread, and night terrors bleed into her waking life. One particularly harrowing night, she awakens to find Mrs. Ganush's spirit looming over her, a twisted smile on her face, whispering taunts that chill Christine to the bone. These visions blur the lines between reality and nightmare, pushing Christine to the brink of sanity. Desperation drives her to a local occult shop, where she meets a mysterious figure who claims to have the knowledge to help her. This character offers dark rituals and dubious solutions, urging Christine to embrace the supernatural in order to fight back. Torn between skepticism and hope, Christine is drawn into this underworld of dark magic, where she must confront her fears and insecurities. She performs a ritual in her home, but the results are catastrophic. It awakens something far more sinister, amplifying the curse instead of alleviating it. As her life spirals out of control, Christine becomes increasingly isolated. Clay grows frustrated and worried, unable to reach her as she becomes consumed by her obsession with breaking the curse. Their relationship becomes strained, filled with misunderstandings and unspoken fears. Christine pushes him away, believing he will be safer if he is not involved in her struggle. But the darkness doesn't respect boundaries. It reaches out, threatening everyone Christine holds dear. In a frantic bid for answers, Christine returns to the fortune teller, hoping for a solution. However, the fortune teller reveals that the curse cannot be undone without a tremendous sacrifice. The implication sends Christine into a tailspin as she grapples with the moral implications of what she must do. The more she learns, the more she realizes that the cost may be greater than she is willing to pay. Christine decides to confront Mrs. Ganush one last time, setting the stage for an explosive climax. The air crackles with tension as the two women face off, surrounded by a chaotic storm of supernatural energy. The confrontation becomes a battle of wills, with Christine struggling not only against Mrs. Ganush's power, but also against her own inner demons. The stakes are high. Christine realizes she must confront, not just the old woman, but also the very essence of her own fear and guilt. The climax is a surreal nightmare, a hallucinatory experience where reality twists and bends. As the forces clash, Christine is thrust into a horrific tableau of her past mistakes, her cruelty and selfishness laid bare before her. This surreal confrontation reveals the true cost of her actions, forcing Christine to reckon with the very darkness she has unleashed. As the dust settles, Christine emerges changed, grappling with the emotional and psychological toll of her experience. The film culminates in a haunting conclusion that leaves audiences shaken. The final scenes reveal that while she may have survived the curse, the scars remain both on her soul and in her relationships. Christine is left to ponder the fragility of compassion and the far-reaching consequences of her choices. The story serves as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying battles are fought within, and the horrors we face can stem from our own hearts. The supernatural occurrences intensify objects, not only move but also seem to have a malicious intent. One night, while searching for answers, she hears a ghastly wailing echoing through her home, a sound that resonates deep within her fears. The atmosphere thickens, and she feels eyes watching her, always lurking just out of sight. Determined to find a way out, Christine immerses herself in the study of curses and dark magic. She discovers a dusty book filled with spells and protective rituals, desperately hoping one might hold the key to her salvation. As she reads, the pages seem to shimmer with a life of their own, beckoning her closer. Each night, she conducts makeshift rituals in her dimly lit apartment, surrounded by candles that flicker ominously, casting eerie shadows that dance around her. Her first few attempts at rituals yield strange and terrifying results. Instead of providing peace, the rituals awaken more sinister forces. One evening, while performing a protection spell, the lights flicker violently, and the air is charged with electricity. A violent gust of wind blows through her home, scattering her materials and sending her reeling back in terror. Shadows coalesce into forms that taunt her, each whispering the sins of her past. Christine is horrified. The more she tries to fight back, the deeper she seems to sink into her own torment. In her increasing desperation, Christine returns to the occult shop to seek guidance from the mysterious figure she met earlier. This time, the figure reveals a dark and twisted ritual that promises to banish the curse but requires an unspeakable sacrifice. The price weighs heavily on Christine's conscience as she grapples with the moral implications. As the clock ticks down, she becomes more desperate, torn between her will to survive and the dread of what she might have to give up. As Christine prepares for the final confrontation with Mrs. Ganush, the reality of her choices becomes clearer. She feels the curse consuming her life, leaving a trail of chaos in its wake. Clay tries to intervene, urging her to seek help and not face this alone, but Christine pushes him away, convinced that the darkness will only endanger him further. In doing so, she isolates herself completely, and the pressure mounts as the deadline approaches. On the day of the final confrontation, Christine arrives at Mrs. Ganush's home, where the air is thick with malice. The two women stand face to face, the tension palpable. As the supernatural forces clash, Christine finds herself enveloped in a whirlwind of emotions: fear, regret, and determination. The confrontation becomes a chaotic dance, with shadows swirling and the very air around them crackling with energy. During this harrowing battle, Christine is forced to confront her deepest fears. The horror of her past actions comes crashing down on her as she relives moments of cruelty and selfishness, each one a dagger to her conscience. In a surreal moment, time stands still, and she sees the faces of those she has wronged, their eyes filled with hurt and betrayal. This reflection becomes a painful reckoning, forcing her to understand the true cost of her choices. As the confrontation reaches its peak, the forces of good and evil collide in a tumultuous climax. In a desperate act, Christine must decide whether to embrace the dark magic she has been resisting or to find another way to reclaim her life. The struggle culminates in a breathtaking explosion of light and shadow, where she taps into her inner strength, a blend of fear and resolve. When the dust finally settles, Christine is left changed. She stands amidst the remnants of her battle, gasping for breath, with the knowledge that while she may have escaped the immediate horror, the scars will remain forever etched in her heart. The film concludes with Christine staring into a mirror, haunted by the reflection of her past and the realization that the battle is not truly over. She must now navigate a world where the shadows of her decisions linger. The final scenes leave audiences with a profound sense of unease, illustrating the complexity of human nature and the lurking darkness within. Christine's journey serves as a chilling reminder that the most terrifying monsters are often the consequences of our own actions, forcing viewers to confront the fragility of compassion and the haunting potential for darkness in every choice we make. As she sinks deeper into despair, the supernatural occurrences in her life become increasingly disturbing. One night, the temperature drops suddenly in her apartment, and she feels an icy breath on her neck. Chills crawl up her spine as she hears the ghastly wail echoing once more, sending her heart racing. Shadows stretch and twist, forming grotesque shapes that seem to mock her every move, amplifying her fear and isolation. Determined to reclaim her life, Christine dives into the study of curses and dark magic, sifting through old tomes in search of a solution. She uncovers a dusty book filled with ancient spells, its pages yellowed and fragile, each one promising protection but laden with ominous warnings. As she reads aloud, the words seem to vibrate with an eerie energy, and the flickering candles cast long, dancing shadows that play tricks on her mind. Despite her hope, her initial attempts at rituals yield terrifying consequences. One evening during a protective spell, the lights flicker violently, plunging her into darkness. An overwhelming force knocks her to the ground, and she feels something cold wrap around her ankle, pulling her toward the abyss. Shadows coalesce into monstrous forms, whispering her past transgressions, forcing her to confront her own moral failures. Paralyzed by terror, Christine realizes that her fight against the curse is only just beginning. In her desperation, she returns to the occult shop, seeking help from the enigmatic figure who initially intrigued her. This time, the figure reveals a dark and twisted ritual that promises to lift the curse but demands a sacrifice, a choice that weighs heavily on Christine's conscience. She grapples with the reality of what she might have to give up, torn between survival and the potential loss of her humanity. As the deadline looms closer, Christine feels the grip of the curse tightening, the darkness spreading like a disease through her life. Clay, her boyfriend, notices Christine's increasingly erratic behavior and grows worried. He urges her to confide in him, but Christine, consumed by fear and shame, pushes him away, convinced that his involvement will only bring him harm. The strain on their relationship deepens as Christine isolates herself, her mind a battleground of dread and desperation. The curse not only threatens her life, but also unravels the connections she once held dear. On the fateful day of her final confrontation with Mrs. Ganush, Christine steels herself. She arrives at the old woman's home, where the air is thick with tension and dark energy. The two women stand face to face, each representing opposing forces in a chaotic clash. Christine feels the weight of her fears pressing down on her, but she is determined to reclaim her life. As the battle begins, the atmosphere crackles with supernatural energy, swirling shadows twisting around them in a chaotic dance. In the midst of the confrontation, Christine confronts her deepest fears and regrets. She is pulled into a hallucinatory realm where the faces of those she has wronged appear before her, each one a reminder of her past cruelty. Time seems to freeze as she relives moments of selfishness, each one a dagger to her conscience. This visceral reckoning forces her to understand the consequences of her choices, illuminating the path toward redemption or further damnation. As the climax reaches its peak, the forces of good and evil collide in a breathtaking explosion of light and shadow. Christine must make a desperate choice to embrace the dark magic she has feared or to find a way to reclaim her life through courage and sacrifice. The struggle culminates in a powerful surge of energy as she taps into her inner strength, a blend of fear and resolve that ignites a fierce light within her. When the dust finally settles, Christine emerges changed, standing amidst the remnants of the battle. Gasping for breath, she realizes that while she may have escaped the immediate horror of the curse, the scars of her journey will remain etched in her heart forever. The film concludes with Christine staring into a mirror, haunted by the reflection of her past and the understanding that the battle against darkness is an ongoing struggle. The lingering shadows of her choices serve as a constant reminder of the fragility of compassion and the potential for darkness within us all. The final scenes evoke a profound sense of unease, illustrating the complexity of human nature and the consequences of our actions. Christine's journey becomes a chilling reminder that the most terrifying monsters often lie not in the supernatural realm, but within ourselves, urging viewers to confront the darkness that can emerge from even the most mundane decisions. The reflection staring back at her is not just her own, it is a mosaic of past mistakes and unresolved guilt, each fragment a reminder of the choices that led her to this moment. The weight of her journey hangs heavy in the air, echoing the darkness she has fought against and the shadows she cannot escape. In the quiet aftermath of her confrontation with Mrs. Ganush, the room feels charged with an unsettling energy. Christine's heart races as she recalls the faces of those she has wronged, her arrogance, her dismissiveness all flashing before her like a haunting slideshow. The images swirl in her mind, each one cutting deeper than the last. She grapples with the realization that while she may have survived the curse, the true horror lies in her own heart. As she turns away from the mirror, Christine feels the lingering chill of the supernatural forces she has encountered. The air is thick with tension, a palpable reminder that darkness is never truly vanquished. It hovers at the edges of her reality, whispering of her failures and the potential for cruelty that resides within her. She wanders through her apartment, now a labyrinth of memories and regrets, each room echoing with the ghosts of her choices. In a moment of clarity, Christine picks up the dusty book of spells from her earlier searches. Its pages are worn and fragile, yet they contain knowledge she once sought for power. Now, however, she sees them as a warning, a testament to the danger of seeking control over forces she barely understands. As she flips through the pages, she contemplates the line between protection and manipulation, understanding that true strength lies not in wielding dark magic, but in embracing vulnerability and accountability. Her thoughts drift to Clay, her boyfriend, who has stood by her despite her distance. In her heart, she knows she must reach out to mend the frayed connections that have suffered in the shadow of her fear. The act of sharing her burden with him becomes a powerful step toward healing, a reminder that she doesn't have to face the darkness alone. The film subtly shifts its focus from the supernatural to the deeply human, emphasizing that the scariest monsters often reside within us, but so does the capacity for love and redemption. The camera lingers on Christine as she begins to write a letter to Clay, pouring her heart out onto the page. She recounts her struggles, the weight of her guilt, and her journey through fear. With each word, she feels a sense of release, as if unburdening herself of the chains that have held her captive. The act of vulnerability transforms her, illuminating the power of honesty and connection in the face of despair. As she seals the letter and prepares to leave her apartment, a sense of resolve washes over her. Christine steps out into the world, the sunlight breaking through the clouds, casting a warm glow over her path. The shadows may linger, but they no longer define her. With each step, she embraces the complexities of her humanity, acknowledging her flaws while also recognizing her capacity for change. The closing scenes reflect this newfound strength. Christine reaches out to Clay, their reunion filled with tentative hope and understanding. Together, they navigate the remnants of her journey, confronting the lingering shadows of the past, but also looking forward to the future. The film closes on a poignant note, a reminder that while darkness may always exist, it is our choices, our connections, and our willingness to confront our own demons that ultimately shape our destinies. In the final moments, as Christine gazes into the distance, the audience is left with a haunting yet uplifting message that the battle against our inner monsters is ongoing, but through compassion, accountability, and love, we can carve a path toward light, even in the deepest darkness. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers to reflect on their own choices and the complexities of the human heart.